What if the Montreal Canadiens, poised to transition from rebuilding to dominating, were on the verge of a seismic trade that could redefine Canadian hockey, but at a cost that tests the very limits of their long-term vision? That's a high-stakes gamble general manager Ken Hughes is navigating right now, as whispers and confirmations from insiders like Corrine Haynes, Nick Kypreos, and Elliot Friedman reveal that the Habs made a last-minute push for Toronto Maple Leafs rising star Matthew Knies at the trade deadline, a move that fell through but signals Montreal's readiness to strike. Hughes' cryptic admission of a big fish slipping away isn't just regret. It's a declaration that the era of wait and see is over. The Canadiens are in attack mode, and the prospect of acquiring Knies, a 23-year-old power forward, has the offices in Toronto trembling with anxiety. This isn't just a trade rumor. It's a potential paradigm shift, a cold transaction between bitter rivals that could reshape the Eastern Conference for a decade. Let's dissect the anatomy of this earth-shaking operation with surgical precision. The urgency driving Hughes is evident on the ice at the Bell Center. Montreal boasts an enviable young core with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield as tactical surgeons, but their top six forwards suffer from a glaring anemia of strength. Martin St. Louis system demands a power forward who can win battles along the boards, park in front of the opposing net, and create physical space through intimidation. Uri Slavkovsky has tried to fill that void, but he can't be in two places at once. Enter Matthew Knies, a 6 feet 3 inches, 232-pound tank with silky hands and elite playmaking vision. With 51 points this season under the crushing pressure of Toronto, Knies has proven he can withstand the scrutiny of a Canadian market. He's not just a goal scorer, he's a space facilitator. The bodyguard and finisher Suzuki and Caulfield have been begging for. His addition would instantly transform Montreal's offensive dynamic, cementing a top six capable of dominating for the next 10 years. But why would the Toronto Maple Leafs, a franchise operating under the win now, or get fired mantra, even consider trading one of their few elite young assets to their fiercest rival? The answer lies in the catastrophic mismanagement under GM Brad Treliving. The 2026 Leafs are a lopsided mess, suffocated by top-heavy offensive contracts and a defense resembling Swiss cheese. Coach Craig Berube appears to have lost the locker room, and an early playoff exit, or worse, missing the postseason, looms as a death knell that will force an aggressive reset. Toronto lacks a first-round pick this year. Their blue line has no depth. They're in a tactical dead end. For the Leafs, Knies is their only $100 bill, the asset that can be flipped for multiple pieces to patch their defense. Here, corporate pragmatism trumps historic rivalry. With the new league schedule limiting Toronto-Montreal matchups to just 4 per season, the risk of Knies haunting them in a Habs jersey is outweighed by the danger of starting next season with the same porous defense that doomed them this year. The deadlock at the deadline stemmed from Toronto's audacious demand, Noah Dobson. Ontario media floated the notion that Knies would only move if Montreal's best defenseman headed the other way. Hughes, with his trademark icy resolve, hung up the phone. You don't fix a leaky roof by selling the foundation of the house. Dobson is untouchable. However, Toronto's retreat to a package centered on David Reinbacher signals that reality has knocked at the Scotiabank Arena's door. There's also the William Nylander factor. His chemistry with Knies is one of the few bright spots in Toronto's season, but that success only inflates Knies' market value, making him too enticing for Hughes to ignore. With the deepest prospect pool in the league and time on his side, Hughes knows that if Berube is fired and a new regime takes over in Toronto, a house-cleaning mentality could pave the way for Knies to land in Montreal. Let's dive into why Knies is the missing piece in St. Louis' puzzle. Beyond his physical profile, he brings a proven ability to thrive under pressure, a critical trait for a market like Montreal, where every shift is dissected. Pairing him with Suzuki and Caulfield would create a line capable of both surgical precision and brute force, overwhelming opponents with speed, skill, and size. His 51 points this season demonstrate offensive reliability, while his net front presence would turbocharge a power play, giving Caulfield cleaner looks and Suzuki more room to operate. Tactically, Knies fits St. Louis' emphasis on relentless forechecking and sustained offensive zone pressure, turning the Habs' top six into a nightmare for Eastern Conference defenses. He's not a short-term rental. He's a decade-long investment in physical dominance. But the cost of this potential deal is a bitter pill. Toronto, even in desperation, won't let Knies go without a king's ransom. A package centered on David Reinbacher, Montreal's top defensive prospect, a right-shot blue liner with top-pairing potential, and a first-round pick is likely the starting point. For Hughes, this is a gut-wrenching decision. Reinbacher represents a future of the Canadiens' defense, a player who could anchor the blue line alongside Caden Gould for years, providing stability as the team's contention window peaks. Trading him, especially to a rival like Toronto, risks depleting a critical area of depth and handing the Leafs a cornerstone to rebuild their own roster. A first-round pick, too, is gold in a rebuild, potentially a future star at a fraction of the cost of a veteran. The toll in young capital is bloody, and the emotional weight of strengthening a hated enemy adds another layer of complexity. From a cultural perspective, this trade would be a tectonic shift in Canadian hockey. The Montreal-Toronto rivalry is the lifeblood of the sport in this country, a clash of identities that transcends the game. Acquiring Knies from the Leafs wouldn't just be a roster upgrade. It would be a psychological dagger to Toronto's fan base, a symbolic triumph for the Bleu Blanc et Rouge. Imagine Knies scoring a playoff-clinching goal against the Leafs at the Bell Center, the crowd erupting as decades of animosity fuel the roar. It's a narrative that could define a generation of Habs fans, but it also raises the stakes. If the trade backfires, if Knies underperforms or Reinbacher blossoms into a star in Toronto, the backlash in Montreal could be unrelenting, a scar on Hughes' legacy as the architect who gambled with the future for a rival's cast-off. Historically, trades between Montreal and Toronto are rare and fraught with peril, precisely because of the stakes involved. The 1992 deal that sent Doug Gilmour to the Leafs from Calgary, with Toronto as a third party, indirectly fueled a Toronto resurgence that haunted the Habs for years. Conversely, smaller moves, like the 2016 acquisition of Ben Scrivens, show that cross-rivalry trades often yield little for either side. The lesson for Hughes is clear. While the potential reward of Knies is immense, the risk of empowering Toronto with Reinbacher and a high pick could create a long-term adversary just as the Habs aim to dominate. Yet, the modern NHL is a cold market where rivalries in the stands don't always translate to the boardroom. Montreal has a capital in need. Toronto has the asset and desperation. Looking to the future, the implications of this trade could reshape the Eastern Conference landscape. Landing Knies would fast-track the Canadiens' contention window, pairing a physical force with their skilled core to create a balanced, intimidating attack capable of deep playoff runs as early as next season. It would signal to the league that Montreal is no longer rebuilding but asserting dominance. However, losing Reinbacher could leave the blue line vulnerable in 3 to 5 years, just as the team peaks, forcing Hughes to overpay for defensive help in a future market. If Toronto uses Reinbacher to rebuild their defense, the Habs could face a revitalized rival in crucial matchups. A bitter irony for a trade meant to bury the Leafs. The ripple effects are profound, balancing immediate impact against long-term stability. There's also the human element to consider. Knies, under the weight of Toronto's dysfunction, may welcome a fresh start in Montreal. With a passionate fan base and young, hungry locker room could reignite his drive. But transitioning to a rival city, under the microscope of the Bell Center, carries psychological risks. Can he handle the expectations of a trade that costs so much? Reinbacher, too, would face immense pressure in Toronto, a market notorious for chewing up young talent under scrutiny. Hughes must weigh not just the on-ice fit, but the mental fortitude of both players in such a high-stakes swap. So, I'm placing the chessboard in your hands. If you were Kent Hughes, would you authorize the trade of David Reinbacher and a first-round pick to secure Matthew Knies, transforming Montreal's attack into an immediate physical powerhouse, even at the cost of your top defensive prospect and future depth to your greatest rival? Or would you block the deal on divisional principle, preserving your blue line foundation and seeking a comparable power forward in less radioactive markets like the Western Conference, even if it means delaying the top 6 upgrade? This isn't just about a player. It's about legacy, rivalry, and the delicate balance between now and tomorrow. Drop your command in the comments, and let's debate the path to building an empire. The Bell Center demands audacity, but with Toronto as a counterparty, every move is a double-edged sword.